I'll get started in just a couple minutes, please. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Eric, you all good? You all ready up there? I got your mic right here. I'll come right there in a second. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our third panel of the day. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here on Sunday. Also, the fact that we know we're celebrating your movies here at HollyShorts. We are here with our third panel of the day, moderated by the great Eric Connor. This is First Steps, Best Steps, Next Steps in the World of Animation. We will potentially be doing a Q&A depending on what the moderator's preference on this. But if you have any questions, by all means, please wait until a mic gets over to you. We want to make sure that the people at home watching this can also hear your questions because they may be asking the same question that you're asking here in person, and we want to make sure that they can hear your question and the answers from the panel. So once again, this is our third panel of the day, First Steps, Best Steps, Next Steps in the World of Animation with our moderator, Eric Connor.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I'm curious, how many of you here are animators or have? Oh, fantastic. All right, so about half of you. Adam, you don't draw? You don't draw. Well, your dad draws for you, I suppose. As long as he doesn't do your homework, all right? I don't want you getting in trouble because of us. Wait. We'll talk later, Adam. You and I on the down low. My name is Eric Connor, and I am not an animator. I am probably the worst drawer in this room by far, and I haven't seen any of your work. I've seen their work, which is, as you'll see, fantastic. And why I have a slideshow here behind them is because they do amazing work like this. And if I shared my drawing, you all would leave justifiably. Though I am a lover of animation, as my watch band with Pixar logos would tell you. And also, I'm a huge fan of the work of the Animation Guild. I'm part of the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission, and all the time, I'm always just trying to find ways to help elevate the various artists and creatives around myself in Burbank, but really the community as a whole. And the Animation Guild, I know, is always fighting the good fight for animators like them and countless animators around the country, around the globe. So just want to say thank you to the Animation Guild. It's the reason, by the way, I got to meet Adam over here as well. So, but before we get to Adam, we have we have Angela. Angela, who I met through, and you'll notice this as a theme. It's like, in essence, the connections you make, the people you meet. Angela, I met through a mutual friend who's also an animator. She, in fact, was so kind to do a panel with me about a week ago as part of the Burbank Media Expo job fair, and kind enough to do it again. So with each of you guys, as you'll see, the slides will be behind you, but it's really, as I'm calling this, first steps, best steps, next steps in animation. So let's begin with the beginning, how you got into this wonderful world of drawings. Angela, take it away. You're starting.
Hello.
Yo, it's on.
Hello. Oh, hey. Hi. I am Angela Beatty. I am a prop effects and character designer for 2D animation mostly. To tell you a little bit about myself, I've been in the industry for about like 8, going on 9 years or so, designing for all sorts of 2D shows from like adult to kids. So some of the projects you might remember me from, like BoJack Horseman, Tuca and Birdie, My Mama Named Me Sheriff, Mr. Pickles, Chicago Party Ant, Mulligan, Baby Shark's Big Show is one of the most recent projects I was on. You saw some of the special effects here are from those characters right there from Baby Shark's Big Show. And yeah, I've had a wonderful career in animation, but how I got started, I guess I can do that little run by real quick. When I was a kid, I was sitting down with my father. We were watching Popeye together, and he leaned in towards me and told me, "Did you know that that's a job you can have?" And absolutely floored. I had no idea what this concept was. What do you mean? Like, people don't make cartoons for fun? Like, what's on TV isn't just done for shits and giggles? But no, sure enough, at that moment, I knew I had to work in cartoons. I was like, this is going to be a career I'm going to have no matter what. And from that point on, I was drawing all over my homework assignments, all over everything. I was obsessed with drawing. I had to make it my living. When it came time to decide where to go for school, I went to Cal State Long Beach because unfortunately I couldn't afford the big animation schools or anything like that. I was just a little poor kid. And so I went to Cal State Long Beach for illustration. The animation department was just starting up at that time. It was kind of fledgling new, so they didn't really have a program at the moment, but I was taking animation classes while taking illustration classes, so I got a bit of a formal education in that fact. Graduated in 2012, and right when you get out of college, there isn't too many opportunities, and we were in the middle of a recession, so I was like, whatever I can do to get me paid that requires skills, creative skills. And a friend of mine was hiring for her sign shop. They needed a new designer, and so I was like, hire me. She knew that I had background in vector design and stuff like that, working in Corel Draw and architecture, a little bit of background in that. And so I did sign design for like 4 or 5 years or so, before I realized, I had gone from being a designer to them being sales to them being project management before I realized, what am I doing? Where did animation go? Like, where did cartoons go? What happened to that? So my teacher, my old mentor, Aubrey Mintz, approached me about a course that he was teaching. It was a summer arts program course from pitch to development through Nickelodeon. And so through that course, luckily enough, I was able to get accepted and I was able to get a scholarship so I could go. And through that course, I learned all the ins and outs of development, from like pre-production to comp to like animating, from pitch all the way till final development of indie and series animation. So it was like really informative. And through that, I found my passion in prop design because we all got together to work on teams to work on our own projects, which was super awesome. And we all chose roles. And so through that, I found my love through props because originally I wanted to work in characters. Like, I wanted to do this for a living. But on our team, we had a fantastic character designer. And I was like, no, she needs to be the one to do our characters. She's amazing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing compared to her. She's so good. And so she went ahead and did the character design. They said, well, we need somebody to draw all the objects and special effects and all the vehicles they drive around. And I'm like, let me give my hand at that. And sure enough, I fell in love. And so prop design became my passion. It's something that I, started to develop a portfolio in on my off hours while working in the sign industry. I let all my friends know that I was looking for a job in animation, and sure enough, an opportunity came by. A friend of mine said that the art director on BoJack Horseman was looking for a designer, and so I shoot my shot. I gave him my portfolio. He liked what he saw. I took a test. Apparently I knocked it out of the park, and I've been in the industry ever since. I've been lucky enough to work on some amazing projects with really talented people, and it's an honor to be here today, that's for sure. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Oh, look at that. You got applause already. Fantastic. Well, to the gentleman to your left, I think the joke is we met the way a lot of guys who look like us meet in LA, which is at Temple. We met at synagogue, and if you know the word mensch, means gentleman. Well, that's Ira, and he's also a brilliant director and artist. So, Ira, how did your career get started?
I did not go to art school. I did have an art degree, and my concentration was in computer graphics. And it was through the art department, not the engineering department, which at the time was different because if you want to do graphics, it had to be an engineer. But I won't go into the backstory, but I just was driven that I wanted to be an animator. I flew out to LA with my portfolio, and when I say I knocked on every single studio door, I knocked on every single studio door. There was no internet at the time. This is 30 years ago. And I had a list that was in the Hollywood Reporter that had animation studios. And I drove to every one of them and I tried to get appointments, and no one hired me. And when I finally did get hired years later, I used to give the Ira Sherak studio rejection tour. So, that's the way to show people around town. But I was out here for about a year of getting a lot of closed doors. And then finally, a producer had my information and they saw that I didn't just do art, but I had a background in video editing and production. So they said, hey, we need someone to make animatics. So where you're taking the storyboards and you're making the animatics. Would you like to do this? And I said, yes. And for me, it's not what I wanted to do, but it was a foot in the door. So I got this job on a show called Duckman, which was for the USA Network. And they said, here's a 6-month contract. So for me, I had 6 months to try to meet everybody I could in the studio. And that's exactly what I did. I had lunch every day in the studio lunchroom, introducing myself. And I was not introverted at all, like most of the animators there. And during that 6 months, I got to know the directors and other board artists, and I told them, "Hey, I want to draw. I don't want to do this." So they started looking at my portfolio, and one of my friends, and he's still my friend, my fairy godparent in animation, his name is Peter Avanzino. He says, "I'd like you to do some freelance for me on my episode." So that was my first step into drawing for animation, and I still work with him to this day. And when he left Classic Chupo to go to Futurama, he brought me with him. And I took Futurama because I really wanted to work on Simpsons, but I said I'll never work on Simpsons. And the first time Futurama was canceled, I then got hired on Simpsons. And I just networked every job I had into another job. And I will tell you all, I'm not the most talented animator. I'm not the most talented artist, but I am not quiet. So you have to use whatever connections you have to your advantage. And I'm proud to say I've been gainfully employed almost 30 years, which is very rare now. So, that's how I got my start.
Awesome. Well, a couple to the right, and this is such a fabulous piece of art you shared with me, and this one might even be, if possible, more fabulous. Uh, so one thing that's great too is your name came from Toby, whose name came from the organizers of HollyShorts, because both of you had an animated short in the festival last year, and I actually moderated the Q&A after your panel, and I mean after your block of films. And these were two films that the second I saw your names, your films, I'm like, oh my God, amazing. Mayfly is the first one, and I have some beautiful renderings from it as well. But long before you showed Mayfly at Holly Shorts 20 last year, how did things get started for you, Sue?
Is it on? Okay, there we go. Well, let's just say this isn't the Mayfly. This is from Beavis and Butthead Do America. Uh, and to be honest, I'm one of the people that, although I watch cartoons every Saturday morning religiously, and I would screw up my father's pads drawing and stuff, I wanted to be a cinematographer. I wanted to be in live action, and I went to film school in New York to become a live action cinematographer. And while studying there, I needed to pay for it. So I took a work study program, and I was a teacher's assistant in the animation area. And as I was learning, I realized that, no shade against live action people, but the people that I was with, I didn't like them. It was really dog eat dog, and everybody just wanted to get who was taking everybody else's editing time, and this. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the heck, And as I was in the animation area, you have to, and I've said this before, you have to be a special kind of weirdo to be in animation because it's time consuming, it's incredibly detail oriented, you can be incredibly isolated, but if you love it, it's like time travel. You lose all sense of time. You're in another world, and all of a sudden you're starving and tired, and you realize that 9 hours have gone by, and you've been working on something because you've been so immersed in that world. And one of the teachers, the reason why I took the job in the animation area is I got to load the cameras and do all the technical stuff. So I was doing all the camera work and all the stuff that I love to do. But I was kind of attending all the classes, and one of the head of the animation area at the time said, "Sue, why don't you take a class, have some fun?" I'm like, "Okay," and I got hooked. I'm done. I was done. So I still took my live action classes, but I ended up. They were having parties. It was like there was this camaraderie because it's a very special kind of person who can be in animation. You have to love it. It's not glamorous. It's like the kind of the redheaded stepchild of the entertainment family. Nobody want to, oh, they're the animators. It's okay. So you don't go into it for that. You go into it because you love it. And I did. I loved it, and I was very, very lucky. It was about 30 years ago as well. And I went to I went through film school, and as I was in film school, I was lucky enough to intern with different animators: George Griffin, Bill Plimpton, Faith Hubley, and the New York animation scene is all independent stuff. So I got to do all sorts of different jobs from beginning to end. I was a track reader. I shot camera for George Griffin, and it was this old Hawkesbury that was jury rigged and had bellows on it. And if you wanted to do a cross dissolve, you had to actually run the film back twice with the shutter closed, and everything was completely analog. No computers. So yeah, I'm old. That's another story. There's mixed company here, but yeah,
The After Dark version of this.
was that was a whole other yeah. We'll talk. I was actually working for Griffin and Plimpton. Anyway, but anyway, I got a chance to do everything. That was the cool part of the New York animation scene, and through Plimpton, actually, through the job I did for Plimpton, um, one of the animators, one of the like big animators in New York, Michael Sporn, who had worked with Blackman, worked with Dick Williams. He saw my work in the Student Film Festival, and said, "Yeah, I have an opening. Do you want to be an animator?" And I said, "You need an assistant, right? You need an in." Because no, I need an animator. Do you want the job or not? I went, okay. Like, all right. It's scared to death, and I did it. And from that point on, the cool thing is that because I was in the New York scene and got so much different experience from camera to track reading to whatever, I was versatile enough to fill in whatever I needed to fill in. I could be if they needed a character and that I learned with Michael too, because after I animated on the first show, he said, "Okay, we got another half hour special. You're going to do the layouts for it." And I looked at him, I went, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you saw the layouts in the last one. You're laying out the whole show." And he dumped a pile of folders on my desk and said, "Have at it. You have 2 weeks." And I went, "Oh, okay." But that was the thing, is that when I learned in school was that you never say no. You always get on a challenge, you roll up your sleeves and you figure out a way to get it done, and you learn and you ask questions. And I was lucky enough that Michael, while he was a really tough boss, if you were willing to learn, he was willing to teach you. But you had to be willing to learn. You couldn't BS your way through it. You couldn't say, "Oh yeah, I know how to do it," and not, because he would call you out on it and in front of everyone. So, but it was great. And when I came out here, it was for Winnie the Pooh, which is a far cry from that. It's a little, yeah,
Let's see, a little closer to that.
closer to that. That's Phineas and Ferb. That happened way later. But going from Michael did mostly children's book adaptations, and from there he was running out of work, so I got called in to work at MTV on Beavis and Butthead, and it was culture shock there. But after Beavis, and I got a whole bunch of other stuff in New York, and then got called in to work on Winnie the Pooh in LA. So going from New York MTV to LA Winnie the Pooh at Disney, total culture shock. But what was cool was that I learned to be versatile. I worked in commercial houses, I worked on industrials. So you learn to roll with it. And the more versatile you are, the more you can turn on a dime and adjust. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys decide, but yeah, for me, yes.
Okay.
For you, maybe. And I will circle back to talk about your short film, both of you, because they played here last year. So figure for our audience members, it might be especially nice to hear about it. But there are maybe 3 animated films that made me sort of tear up or cry as an adult. One, of course, is Up, which all of us are still in self-help and seeing therapists because of that film. As beautiful as it was heartbreaking. Another one, I don't know if you worked on the episode, Ira, but Futurama, the episode involving the dog. You son of a... I can't say it. Your son's right there. My wife and I just adopted a
Jurassic
dog.
Park, it was called.
Yeah. Oh, but don't, even the name is triggering me. Don't do that. My wife and I just adopted a dog. Sharky. I don't know if you met her or not. And she looked so much like that dog in that episode. If you haven't seen it, it's basically the story of Hachi. It's the dog who waited its entire life for his master to come back. We watched it. We were bawling. We had a DVR back in the day. It's so long ago. It was a TiVo. We deleted it because we were like, I can't handle any more of this. How could you do this? And now I know it's you. You did this.
I'm one of many people who worked on it.
No, I'm blaming you, Ira. You're the only one I'm blaming. It was such a beautiful episode, by the way. I have watched it again when I was a little more mature. I was 29 then, so when I hit like 35, I'm like, I think I can handle this. Well, another animated piece that really got me in a beautiful way was yours, Lucky and the Lights, which I might have mentioned last time. So, um, yeah, Lucky and the Lights played here last year, and it is a beautiful piece and heartbreaking and inspired by truth, inspired by a real story, but so effective. And before you got to Lucky, how did you get your start in animation?
Just it's a long, windy journey of all of that. Originally, I started drawing, probably like all of us up here. I'd get in a lot of trouble from my teachers because I was always drawing Ninja Turtles. Not much has changed. I've got Ninja Turtle shoes on. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, in the mic. Fantastic shoes. If you can zoom in, trust me, it's worth it.
But I wanted to be a comic book artist, and then I was just getting in trouble so much in school that it just I just pushed it all aside. And then eventually in high school, my dream was I was to go to play basketball, and then go into the Marines, then go play in European ball, and then get into the NBA. And that was the goal, and that was the route. But in high school, I started winning a bunch of awards for art and different things like that. So I started taking that more seriously. And then I went to a terrible school in Colorado called the Art Institute, which, all of those have since thankfully crumbled and died for stealing people's money. But then I found a school that actually taught me how to animate and do things in just a couple weeks over the summer program in Gobelin in France. So, I had 4 years at this school, and then I kind of learned everything in just a couple weeks at Gobelin, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And then I just always devour information. So then I went to an online animation school, and then I went to screenwriting, and then I, constantly did more and more things. But because I was in Colorado and the dream was to come to California and work at Pixar and do all that stuff, I tried to, I had my own animation production company out in Colorado. I was servicing clients and doing commercial work and stuff like that, and trying the entrepreneurial route of things. But that all kind of blew up, and I said, "The hell with it." I moved to San Francisco, where I met this guy, and couch surfed around for a little bit. I was then fortunately accepted into the first cohort from a school started by Pixar people, and then I did that for about 9 months, and I didn't know anybody, didn't have a job, didn't have any money. I started a meetup group for artists, and through that, I eventually started networking and met amazing artists and talent up there. That led to a startup company in San Francisco, and I was like, I'll be here like 3 weeks. And then the 3 weeks turned into like 3 months, and then 3 years, and then 5 years. And it was way too long. But I really got to just sink my teeth into what it was like to be in a startup and treat that company as if it was my own, and just always go into the CEO's office or the creative director's office and just ask them questions on like, why are they operating this way? How are they, what is their strategy for this? And all kinds of stuff that I was just curious about. So in 2017, I left and I revamped my company, and I've been working with clients ever since. Typically, my goal with animation, and the reason why I started Big Grin Productions, was to put big old grins on everybody's faces with the work that we create in the world. And for me, I feel a sense of responsibility with what animation can do and can invoke emotions or make people laugh or cry. And I feel a sense of responsibility to put good out into the world. So that's typically the type of projects that we would take on. And then that eventually led us to Lucky and the Lights, where this story was inspired by a gentleman in the Netherlands that was diagnosed with the disease ALS, known as Lou Gehrig's disease over here. And it kind of went from there, and then we spent all last year touring with this film.
I figure since you're talking about that, maybe we'll jump to Mayfly for a moment here as well. This idea of, okay, you have a short film, animated short, like some of you in the audience here, and you go to the film festivals. And what's that experience like, navigating that piece?
Well, I was just talking to Toby about that. It was like a fever dream. It was crazy because I don't know about you guys, but I'm used to kind of being isolated and doing your thing. And it's, you're behind the camera and you're drawing, you're coloring or doing whatever. And then all of a sudden you're seeing your work I've primarily worked in television and film. So you don't really get to see, people's reaction real time, unless you're at a premiere or whatever. And to see people and to see their reactions and feel the reactions was amazing, aside from seeing it on a big screen and stuff and talking to people. But I'm not used to that. And it was so gratifying after sitting by myself after hours at home working on this film to and putting it out there. And it meant a lot to me personally, and it meant a lot to the creator of the film, the writer Betty. So it was so personal to see that the response we got from other people was amazing. It was overwhelming, to be perfectly honest. And talking to people about it afterwards, having people coming up and saying, "Wow, that meant something to me," or "That was my story," or whatever. It was completely overwhelming, and I would get almost emotional after every single Q&A. It was really embarrassing. So I'm glad it wasn't. No, we're not doing that today.
Well, and just for those who don't know the project, and I have some images from Mayfly behind her. Betty is Betty Buckley, the actress, who, as a very, very young person, I got to see her in the first Broadway run of Cats. And if you know that song "Memory," well, there's a reason she has a Tony Award on her mantle, and I do not. Because try as we all might to sing that song at some point, maybe after a drink or two of chocolate milk, Adam. Um, my God, I still remember as a kid seeing that. And my parents had seen it in England. They came back and they're like, "Oh, it's a musical about cats." And I was like, okay. I was like 7 or 8 at the time. I'm like, that seems a little weird. And then, of course, you see it. Now, you don't have to worry about the movie, but the musical, if you ever get a chance. And Betty Buckley, so she did this story based on an experience she had with
Right.
a mayfly flying around the lights, right?
Exactly. Yeah. She's a brilliant, in addition to being a singer, she's a brilliant actress and storyteller. And right before the pandemic, she was actually at the Cafe Carlyle in New York, watching a concert, watching Judy Collins perform with a friend. And during the performance, she saw this little mayfly in the light above Judy Collins' head, dancing to the music, in time with the music, and just dancing the whole time. And it was creating these patterns of light in the air. And, it transfixed her. And, and at the very last song, the very last note, the mayfly passed away and landed in Judy Collins' hair. Now, that doesn't seem really poetic, but to Betty, she was like, "Oh my gosh!" It was like it was part of the show. It's like she just hovered in midair for a second and then drifted down on the very last note. And that the whole experience, her friend didn't see any of it, and the experience stuck with her. And then the pandemic hit, and so all of us had a lot of time to think about stuff. And this little voice kept saying, "Tell my story, tell my story." And she kept thinking of it. She's like, "How the heck did a mayfly that only lives 3 days or 2 days, by the way, end up at the Cafe Carlyle dancing above Judy Collins' head?" And she created this story that was based on her own experience and what resonated with me about going against what you're supposed to do, because mayflies are basically, once they become adults, they have no mouths, which made it a lot easier to animate because don't have to do lip sync. but but that's why they only live a couple of days. So as adults, their main, especially female mayflies, are there to basically procreate. You live, you procreate, you die. And this little mayfly didn't. She followed her passion. She followed music and song and dancing and made her way to give the performance of her life. And she followed her passion till her very last breath. And it's getting me all choked up now because, but that's the story of an artist. That's my story. I was supposed to be a pharmacist. didn't happen. I mean, and my mom's still asking me if I think I should be a pharmacist. And some days I'm like, well, maybe. But
You could be a chemist, you know. That was, I think, Woody Allen's parents said
Yeah.
that to him in his documentary.
yeah,
It'd be better if you were a chemist, but it's worked out.
that's not too shabby. 30 years making cartoons, not too bad. But that's what inspired it. And Betty had to go against all odds. She studied journalism. That's why she's a wonderful writer. She got her degree in journalism in Texas, and she worked and became the Betty Buckley, which freaked me out. But yeah, and so to get back to your question, being on the festival circuit and seeing how many people had the same story I did, and see that it kind of made them smile and gave them hope, and made some said, I was going to give it up, and now I know I can keep I was like, oh my god, and that it made it all worth it. All those late nights where I was cursing my name and what the you should have become a pharmacist. What the hell are you doing? Sleep is important. It made it all worth it, and it's like, okay, we put something out there that really resonated with people and said something positive, put a little light out there. It's a sweet film, but it has some serious undertones and things that need to be said. So there you go.
Well, I want to hand off the conch to Adam Dix. So, Adam, and again, this idea of it goes beyond like networking. That notion of, oh, I got to find someone, I got to ask something of them, I've got to put out my hand. It's like, well, no, it's about finding a village. I'm making a village in LA or wherever you may be, and of creative people, like-minded people. And what I love hearing is that you guys knew each other. Adam taught a class recently that Angela took. And so this notion of finding your village, and the Animation Guild were the ones that connected us as well. So Adam, I was wondering if you could tell. I got your stuff here as well. It's up behind you.
What was the question?
Well, just first steps.
Oh,
Sorry about
first
that.
steps.
I left it out.
So I went sort of the slightly more traditional route, and attended an art college, and got my first job in college working for a social media company, building Facebook games and iPhone games. And then we got bought by Disney, and I was thrilled. And then we all got fired because they shut the studio down. So in that, I was living in San Francisco where I met Toby, and I think all of us were looking for a bit of a community at that time.
Finding our escape.
Yeah, that's the truth. So I kind of knew I wanted to come down here and give my shot at animation, and properly, because it's what I studied. I studied traditional 2D animation with like a highlight and visual development, concept art. But yeah, through a few people I met in San Francisco, I just reached out because I wasn't finding anything, and I was like, somebody who works in this, like, could you just ask them if they could have a look at my portfolio and at least advise me? And that surprisingly got me my very first job in TV animation, which was on Sophia the First, and I got hired as an in-house character designer, which character design is a tough job to get because a lot of people want to do it, and somehow I got very, very lucky in terms of being able to do that as my first job. And I kind of continued from there. So I was at Disney for a couple of years, and then I hopped over to DreamWorks to work on the Boss Baby show as a character designer, and then have been hopping from studio to studio working as a character designer since. But all of those jobs have really just come about through, like, I've never applied for any of them except for maybe one. But it all, as Ira was sort of saying, like, it is about getting to know people. It's sort of, the idea is sort of this 50-50 balance of you have to be able to do the work, and then the other half is don't be a dick. Be kind, be friendly, be chummy. Like, you were
That's exactly what I was going to say. I remember asking a producer who I worked with like a year later, but I said, how do you find the line between, being persistent and being annoying?
Yeah.
And when they said, well, when they tell you to F off, then, you
Yeah,
stop
then you
asking
cross
them.
the line.
So, but like I said earlier, like I'm not a typical introverted animator.
Yeah.
I'm also from New York. I was like, okay, I have a limited time out here. I have to make things happen. And most of my jobs also are coming from recommendations.
Yeah.
And like you work your butt off and you don't say, no, I can't do that. You figure it out. You learn how to do it on the job. And it was a dream for me. I grew up watching Simpsons. I wanted to be on The Simpsons. I never thought I'd get it. And then they said, "Hey, do you want to come work on The Simpsons?" I was like, "Oh my god!" Like it was unbelievable to me. And but it was through persistence and being taking direction and being adaptable and not being quiet because it's different now. I had a hard portfolio. I didn't have a website. I still don't have a website, and you're supposed to have one, but I'm fortunate enough that I keep finding jobs, but I don't sit back waiting for people to call me. I will make the calls. I will reach out. I will have lunch with people. And I think your network is really important for your current jobs and your future jobs.
Well, on that end too, and we could sort of do this in any order now. Um, some of you guys already touched upon this, but this notion of best steps, like choices you made along the way, sometimes the one that was the road less traveled that turned out to be the difference. So, like I said, we can sort of go, whoever wants to jump in with this, please do.
Well, I mean, I'm currently so I worked on Simpsons. I worked on that episode, that was an Emmy-winning episode called "The Seemingly Never-Ending Story." And at the time, uh, when we did storyboards, everybody got an act. But in that particular episode, they divided up every act into different stories. So it was a story and a story and a story and a story. And it was really hard to follow the tracking. So I approached the director and producer. I said, why don't we separate all the stories and give each board artist a story to follow, not the act? And we did, and I can't take full credit, but that's how a lot of studios do their storyboard division work now. You follow one of the story, either story A or story B, whatever it is. So it's all continuous. You don't have to sync up with another artist who now is probably working remote. But it's you just have to be adaptable. So I'm working on Futurama now, and I'm an episodic director, but I also do retakes. I didn't train in traditional animation, and for those of you who know how to do traditional animation, there's X sheets. You do the timing. I am self-taught timing, and we have a small boutique studio, and they said, "Okay, Ira, I need you to time this." I didn't say no. I said, "Okay." And I did it, and there were mistakes, but I went to my supervisor, my fairy godparent. I was like, hey, what's wrong? What can I work on? And that's how you get better, by just doing it over and over. And that's how I became a timer for animation.
That same note, being adaptable, having skills that you've cultivated over the years. For example, I started out as an animator, and slowly and but surely, animation jobs in our country were kind of going away. So I became a layout artist, and that's something I got lucky enough at Michael's to learn, and I adapted it. And that's a friend of mine that I'd gone to school with was at MTV, and I worked on his show called The Head for a little while. So, uh, that was a weird show. Hello, yeah. I worked on that for a while, and then from there that ended, and I ended up on Beavis because another friend of mine was on Beavis, and I worked on that for a while, um, doing layouts. And then on the Beavis movie, I ended up they had the hallucination sequence, which was that, and I got to animate from Rob Zombie. I got to animate his his drawings, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I gotta admit, that was pretty cool. Um, and the person who directed it, Chris Prinoski, now has his own studio here called Titmouse. And so he called on me when I moved out to LA. I thought I was going back to New York, and he was like, "Hey, I got a show at Cartoon Network. Come on, you got to be a director on it. Come on." And it was kind of an anime ripoff, not ripoff, but an homage to anime called Megas XLR. And it was kind of all about a giant robot that came back from the future, and some guy from New Jersey tricked out the head to be an old car. Anyway, but it's very high concept. But because I was directing on it, but I had to know exposure sheets, and they they had to have somebody who knew that. Nobody knew how to do it. And because I was an animator, I understood exposure sheets because it's basically doing the blueprints of the animation on paper for the overseas studios to use.
It's like looking at the Matrix if you don't understand it.
Oh, it's totally bizarre, and I still have my exposure sheets, and it's just like, it looks so bizarre, and you have all these little thumbnails, and, and it looks like a physics equation. It's so fun. Um, it's exhausting because you're animating in your head, and that's totally different. But to your point, it's about adapting and the connections that you make along the way. You're only as good as your last job.
Agreed.
And if you don't put your best foot forward, you want to learn as much as you can. Don't be a jerk. I mean, I've been a supervising director, and my biggest rule when hiring people, close your ears for a second. Thank you. No assholes. I have the strict no asshole policy because you can be as talented as can be, but if you're difficult to work with and you don't want to do the job, and you make like everybody else's life, it's the schedules and budgets. Trying to maintain that is impossible as it is, and it's because nobody understands the art form. You have to actually do it to understand it. And being a timer for a long time, nobody knows what the hell a timer is. They don't know what they do, so they don't understand the importance of it. And that's why it goes away. And the thing is that when you're battling against that and trying to come up with something good, then that's hard enough as it is. And if you have somebody in the bunch, it just makes life so much more difficult because you got to deal with that drama and all the BS, and it's just like, it's draining. So if you're not a jerk and you really put out your best foot, I mean, to your point, I think now that I actually do have to apply, I am not getting jobs because it's an AI algorithm. But whenever somebody does know who I am, I go from job to job to job. And that's how I got the job at Disney. I ended up on the Heffalump movie because one of the board artists, Eugene, who I'm sure you worked with. Yeah, you know Eugene. Yeah. I've known him. Oh my God.
He's the best.
It's a small industry.
It's a
It's,
it's a big
it's
time.
incestuous.
We all know each other
Just
somehow,
like
one
with
way or
anything,
another.
it's all about relationships and who you know, and as you said, it's tenacity. It's saying yes even when you're scared to things, and just with certain client projects. Like for me, I, I taught myself how to do a lot of the whole 3D pipeline, from modeling, rigging, texturing, all that stuff, not because I wanted to or because I thought it was fun, but I needed to know that so when I would hire somebody, they couldn't, pull anything over me on that. And actually, a couple of years ago, that happened to me for a nationwide commercial. We needed a groom artist for these giraffes, and they wanted to look hyper realistic. And I'd worked with this guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I can do this, I can do this," but he was just charging me out the nose, and then like this thing would break and this thing would break, and I didn't understand. So once we got that commercial, I was like, "Okay, let me find the best person I can for this." So I went and got the guy that was the lead grooming artist on Detective Pikachu, and I said, "You're going to do this. I'm going to pay you a little extra, and you're going to teach me everything that you know how to do." And it was like kind of like coding for me. And I was just like, "Oh, this is not fun." But now I know I know like the process and the steps from doing that. And you just put yourself out there to learn this stuff.
Sure.
Well, I think like you hit upon this in talking about your time at film school, where so much of this industry you start to realize like there's no room for backstabbing and there's no room for ego because it's super collaborative, that really any show is really just a group of people that have been compiled together to solve problems more than like, yeah, we all have specific jobs, but like we're also looking out for, I need to make sure that the characters that I'm designing have, I'm clear about my turnarounds for the modelers, that like the texture callouts make sense, that they know like what the bit mapping should be. And, the story artists need to know like what the size variances are. Like you look for the problems to solve. And like, while the drawing part is important, you have to be able to do the job. The biggest part comes down to just how you treat the people around you. And I think perhaps the thing you liked was just the fact that like we're all just a bunch of silly nerds who don't get bored with
Yeah.
like focusing on this really complex problem for a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot of puzzle solving,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. And, what I'm grateful for, all the different things that I've gotten to do. I'm boarding now, but I've been a retake director. I've been a director, an episode director. And now that I'm boarding, I can tell ahead of time. It's like, oh, well, if I board this, if this isn't an aquatic episode, this is going to be hell in retakes because I've been a retake animator too. And that was another thing. It's just like I finished up Mayfly and I was just looking for work, and a friend of mine knew I was working on the show, and he's like, "Oh, did you animate in Harmony?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "We need a retake animator." I was like, "I'm there," and I learned it really fast. You just have to be able to do it. But by being a retake animator, they got rid of the retake animators. And they're like, "Well, we need a board artist." I was like, "Okay." And by being a retake animator, I was like, "Oh, well, they always screw up the water effects. So when I'm boarding, I board it so you don't have to see the waters lapping up onto the shore, and that makes everybody else's job easier." I'm sure everybody's heard the expression, "We'll fix it in post." I've been in post. Don't ever do that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and the nature of animation being collaborative and being able to work with your teammates and understand what they're doing and being involved in their processes too. The more you can make your coworkers' lives easier,
Oh, yeah.
the more they're going to want to work with you in the future. Before I worked in animation, I was working at that sign shop. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to be such a good collaborator in animation is because before I got in animation, I was working on multiple different teams, also directing multiple teams of designers, and you kind of get away in an understanding of how to work with people with different egos and different personalities, and how to come to people how they are and come to understand people with empathy and work alongside those type of people. And those are the type of skill sets that you take with you for the rest of your career. It's the cornerstone of animation because ultimately we're all here making cartoons together, and we all want to make each other laugh, and we all want to have a good time doing it. So yeah, I think it's all about maintaining that team thought process and think like, how can I help others? How can I better express to others how they can help me? Communication. It's so important.
And to Toby's point, it is a really small industry. Everybody, I mean, it's not even 6 degrees of separation. It's like 2. Um,
Like we met tonight,
yeah,
but you knew Toby.
Right.
So like we've been 1 degree of separation
Exactly.
for how long? But then you also know Eugene, who
Yes.
I also know. So we're another degree
I've
of
known
separation.
him since he was 18.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all about Eugene.
Yeah,
I
well, we love
introduced
Eugene.
myself to
Eugene's-
Chris Pronowski on
Oh,
Megas XLR because
oh,
I
there you go.
wanted to go work on it
There you
because I
go.
liked how because I saw the MTV short he did.
Oh yeah.
So it's a
I worked on
small, and I applied at Michael Sporn 30 years
Oh
ago.
my God! Wow. Sorry.
I didn't get the job. Be nice to everyone, because then see, they remember when you're not
Yeah.
nice.
I wasn't not nice. I just happened to be there.
But she said sorry.
I did.
Okay.
But the thing is, when I came out to LA, I had only been here. I came out right after school, and it was when nothing was going on. And I did kind of the same thing. I rented a car, did what I just made the rounds, and everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, nice, okay, whatever." And I got the tours too, and got shoved out the door. And then after that, that's when I got hired at Michael's again. I'm sorry. But when I came back out for the Heffalump movie, people knew me. They knew my name, and they freaked me out because they're like, "Oh yeah, I know you." I'm like, "You do?" Okay, I was like, it's not true,
That was like me at my first CTN. Like
right?
it was I just moved to the city maybe 2 months before, but like my work preceded me
Yeah.
in a way that suddenly like people were coming at me that like down the little aisle being like, "Are you?" And I'd be like, maybe who?" But
How much are you offering?
yeah,
Who's asking?
I'll take the job. No, they weren't offering. But no, yeah, your work precedes you. So like that is, I think, the part where like the work has to be able to be done. And then it's just when people approach you, be earnest and human and
Well, and it's not only just precede you, everybody knows everybody else. And I can't tell you how many times friends of mine have called me up and said, "Hey, so and so just applied for a job. They said they worked with you. What do you think?" And that's another, how you treat people. people remember. If you flake out on stuff and, pass the buck and are always late or, make life difficult for other people, people are going to remember, And when I was working at Michael's, some guy turned in, I don't think it was you, turned in a portfolio and he put in animation drawings that I did. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, no. And Michael's like, yeah, I don't think so. And yeah, so you got to be honest about that stuff.
You're not going to forget that guy.
No. And I just looked at him and I went, really? You did that, did you?
We're gonna go pay that guy a visit right after this. If anyone wants to drive.
He's not around anymore. We took care of him. It was New York. No,
No,
just
but
saying.
similarly, I had an instructor in college that got caught stealing work for his portfolio and had gotten into like major studios.
From his students.
Some from his students, some
Oh,
from like
God.
other coworkers in productions, and like that was 15 years ago, and I still I know who it is.
Just telling about
And
AI. Sorry.
Yeah, and actually, AI was one thing. It's funny. It's like the two nasty letters. You and I were even emailing about this. Like, do we open that can or not? But I would. I mean, I think it would be irresponsible for me not to ask a little bit about that. We only have about 10 minutes left,
What?
but I know time flies.
Wow.
Like a mayfly. But unfortunately, time goes longer. But yeah, Toby. I mean,
Because
if you
AI
wanna-
is coming.
yeah. If you want to open up that can, please do.
No, just to echo what everybody's sharing up here on stage, it's a team sport, and the job is only getting more difficult because people and Sue and I were chatting about this. Like the individuals are being asked to do more and more responsibilities and not being compensated for it properly, or the executives or studios or even the production managers don't know how to. Like they're struggling to budget time and manage the artists and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, you're a board artist. Now you're doing retakes. Now you're going to be editing. Now you need to do sound effects and all this. And you still have the same deadline for this, And then you add all the crazy AI on top of this. And I'm trying to learn personally as much as I can about it right now because from the live action side, and I only like flirt with that stuff a little bit, but just seeing the studio heads and producers and things like that. Some of them think it's it's like Jesus is coming, like it's going to save us all, and it's going to reduce budgets. And here we are, we're going to be able to tell those stories that we always wanted to with a fraction of the budget. But it's a mess, and it's so much more work right now. Like nothing is Showtime ready, but it's getting closer and closer. And for me, again, coming back, I was sharing this with Sue earlier, like I want to know these tools because now when I'm looking at portfolios or pitch decks or whatever, I need to know what I'm looking at, if it's real or if it was used and scraped by some sort of Gen AI. And I think the thing too is AI is a trending buzzword that everybody loves and shareholders love. And it's like, how can we, boost our shares? And what is the company doing to get behind this? But AI has been around for a long time. It's just, to me, I think it's the Gen AI, the generative AI stuff that we got to figure out. And to me, it's like, and I was also sharing with Sue that I'm flirting with the idea of starting a company because like I would rather have artists be in control of this versus some tech bro in San Francisco or the big corporations kind of dictating this and just kind of putting it onto us. And again, with the expectations of you still have less time to do the actual work. The artists are going to be the ones stuck trying to figure out, okay, how do I make all this garbage that we just prompted or have been given something and make it worthwhile or paint over it or redo it or whatever, when they could have just probably done it right the first time to begin with. And then you get the whole ethics involved into it, right? So it's like, okay, now we're slapping ethical AI onto things, which is a good start. But honestly, it's just they're licensing artwork and then they're training that data model. So I also think that the studios will be like, okay, great, Adam, you're an awesome character designer. We need these characters done, but guess what? For season 2, we don't have half the budget and we're going to reduce the amount of episodes, but let's train everything because we're still going to pay you, but we're going to train everything for season 2 and season 3 off of your stuff. Cool. Is Adam getting paid for that or is he just getting paid for his time? We got to have these discussions, but I think the artists, we need to be leading this.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
back in January, I worked for a robotics company, and they're developing some really fun stuff that is using smart bots that use AI to think, but they wanted to bring in a bunch of artists to like design and play around with what these things could look like and move like. So I did some animating, I did some designing, but in my contract, I made it very clear and very specific that like none of my stuff would be used in any sort of rendering and any sort of training and any sort of thing. So, and the wildest thing was, I was like, they're surely not going to like want me to do this then. But no, they were super on board. Like they were like, yeah, let's just talk to the lawyer, and it was done in a day. They just knew that like this is my parameter. You cannot use my work to train any sort of AI, especially as they are a company that is utilizing it. That I then another friend of mine was joining on the team, and I explained to her that I had done this, and we discussed even to the point of like, this is how much I'm asking for. Maybe ask for that much, so that I think a lot of the communication side of things, a lot of the cross pollination of all of us being an open discussion with like finding these solutions and finding, if there's supposed to be equal pay, like we got to talk about our budgets, we got to talk about what we're paid. And so all that to say is it was not that hard. I think it's just a matter of being willing to stand on principle openly.
And
And I think the guild. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. I've been talking too much. Go ahead.
Oh no. Through, and things like the animation guild, help with negotiating contracts and putting together contracts that work and are sensible for you. Not to say I'm super happy about our most recent contract, but it is a work in progress. It is a work in progress, and we'll get there. We'll get there, but be involved with, your local governments, be involved with your union, be involved with your trade kin, and work towards sensible guidelines and ethical use of these types of things. That's another pathway towards it as well.
Yeah, I think to Toby's point, the more educated the artists are, again, it's another form of adaptation. I mean, this happened in the 80s when stuff started going overseas. You have to adapt, you have to learn. Exactly. Same. Yeah, exactly. And so I learned, I learned how to do retakes in 3D. It's a similar language, similar, different tools. If you know the language, you can deal with the tools, but you have to be knowledgeable enough and learn. I'm so impressed that you're actually learning about this. I haven't had the guts to dip my toe in yet, but I know I've got to. And I will.
There be dragons.
I know. But the thing is that if you understand the tools, then you understand what's being asked of you, and you can protect yourself. You can kind of roll with it.
To fix it. And what they save at the front end, they lose.
Allows for you to be able to like say like, well, this is like the limitation of my job. I can do this thing, but you're going to pay me more to do this added thing because you deserve the pay for the effort that you've put in to provide them a greater breadth of skill.
Yeah, it's not just the hours you're putting in, it's the years of experience that you've accumulated, and it's your talent and it's your voice. Every artist has their own specific voice, and when you're putting stuff out there, it's got to say something. It's got to say it in a way that nobody else can say it. because all of us, you could, yeah, no, fine. But it's true. I mean, you can always tell. I know, like, I can always tell Eugene's boards. I can always tell, an artist's hand, their sensibility. I had a friend of mine say, "Did you direct that episode?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I could tell." It's just you have that voice. And Toby, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's gonna come back to taste. Like AI is never gonna be able to touch that, and it's gonna come back to the artist's hand, and to the director, the team actually getting behind it and creating something.
Yeah, but you got to weather it, and that's the tough part. There are always these storms. This is a pretty bad one, but you got to weather it.
But I think too, like, the audience isn't dumb.
No.
Like, if something is earnest and is made with good intention and good heart and clever skill and like an intelligent board artist who understands composition and pacing, and like the whole thing comes together to create something profoundly moving, it's never going to get, like, AI is not ever going to get close to it. It can't, because ultimately you're asking it to create something that is intrinsically human. That empathy, that sympathy, that cathartic moment that we all have in the movies of seeing ourselves experience and live and journey through our own struggles. A computer is merely guessing at it, whereas we all experience it personally. Therefore, I can't see how that would be replaceable. And I think the audience will understand and get tired of sort of the very TikTok-y craze performances that are going to be coming out through whatever productions do it. And then ultimately, I think I think we're about to see sort of a rise of indie animation coming through again.
Yeah, it's happening.
So it's like full circle, basically, right there.
It's cyclical. No, I was saying the whole thing is very cyclical.
Well, these guys are irreplaceable. I think you all would agree. These are as human can be, and I really appreciate, like, and apologies that we didn't have time to open up for questions, but they are the story. The five of them, their careers, their paths, and their attitudes, and I think hopefully you see. I mean, I just love, like, sort of sitting back and watching the camaraderie. Seeing that you guys have been in these trenches together, even if you didn't know each other directly. You realize, oh my God, we were in the same foxhole and had no idea. Before we wrap, if you'd be so kind, and I don't know if you're even on social media. I don't think you are.
I am not.
Oh my
Not
God.
on Facebook, Instagram. I peek at my wife's Facebook account every now and then. I'm on LinkedIn, but all it says is open for work. Like,
neither.
I mean,
What a treat, a blessing.
I-
Oh my God.
I'm not on any of
He'll
it.
outlive us all. But as far as then following your next projects, I guess go to LinkedIn to find Ira.
Yeah, that's the only way.
Angela, how about yourself? If you guys want to share your socials or websites.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram either using my name, Angela Beatty, or Snoogles, which is SN00GLEZ. Please forgive me. I made it when I was in high school, and I've never changed it. So that's me, but I'm also on LinkedIn too. Blue Sky, Kara, all under Angela Beatty. You can find me there.
How do you follow that?
I know. Mine is my first and last name, Adam Dix,
Smart.
except that it's spelled Dix. Yeah,
Be careful of spelling it
middle
the other
school
way.
was really fun. And no HR person can ever get on my case. But yeah, it's just Adam Dix on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm off social media as well. Yeah, I
Is this
got
a
off.
detox or?
It is. It is. It was really getting a bit much for me. So I'm taking an extended break from social media, but I am on LinkedIn, and I do have a website of my own called www.tinybutmighty.com, and you can see what I'm up to. And
I really thought it was just going to be Tiny Butt.
not lately.
A spin-off of his website, maybe.
Oh my God, that's
And then for yourself, Toby, how do they find you?
Wow.
So if you go to
you should
Adam's,
check out my Instagram, by the way.
if you go to Adam's Instagram, he has some awesome butt drawings on there. But that's why. You can go to social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the things. It's just my first and last name, Toby Cochran, and Yeah, I'm currently working on a animated feature. I optioned a screenplay earlier this year, and the writer and I have been working on that. So we need to start testing the waters and pitching it around. And then I'm also developing a preschool show right now as well for through my own company. Yeah.
And because also, like yourself, I, as a high schooler, decided, oh, well, I'm going to get a United account and I'm going to choose Count as my salutation. So, thus, I am still Count Eric Connor, ERICCO, and then ER over on Insta. And I'll plug something, actually, another film festival I'm connected to, the Burbank International Film Festival. And we are going to have an Animation Guild panel. So, I'm going to give tags, sort of the first right of refusal go after whoever they want. So they might ask you to come back. They might ask all of you. They might not even ask me.
I'm a judge this year for this film festival, and it's amazing. Like the lineup it's strong. Like that festival and this festival are fantastic.
The last time I actually saw you, you were going to this festival.
Fantastic plugging. Thank you, guys. It's as if I paid them. We're having actually a preview event, and if you go, you even can get free tickets to some of the screenings. So that's Tuesday, August 26th. If you venture over the 818 hill, if you go into that valley, yes, it's hotter. It's okay. You'll be okay. They have air conditioning. Tuesday, August 26th, 7 to 8:30, we're going to have some of the board members, including myself, and some of the filmmakers from this year's fest. And by the way, the festival also just announced they're giving a very special Vanguard Award to a little known indie filmmaker known as Quentin Tarantino. So if you need to, I don't know, be starstruck, there you go. But what's really cool is, as you were saying, just the breadth of material we get. And as a judge for both HollyShorts and Burbank International Film Festival, the hardest job is choosing which films not to take because there's so many great ones. So congratulations to all you guys who got into the HollyShorts Festival. Get the most out of this festival. It's for another week. Use your pass. Go to everything. And thank you to our panelists who shared everything with us, past, present, and future. And make sure you guys know schedule for the rest of the day. The documentary screening is happening right now. You missed some, but you can see some more. But at 6 o'clock, there's going to be a finance and distribution opportunities in Africa panel right here. 7:30 sci-fi block of films. 10 o'clock drama, and then you should go to bed. Or go out and party, whatever you need to do. Depends on your age, I suppose. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing everything.
One more time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the last panel. Now, we are going to be breaking down and set up for the next panel, which starts in about 10 minutes. So if you have